everyone, this is Greyshot17, and today I'm going over the top films of 2020 that I saw. The pandemic hit, I couldn't watch everything for many different reasons, but at the very least I tried. And for those who are new to the channel, maybe don't know, the last couple of years I've been trying to watch movies and incorporate the reviews on the channel. Some have done well, some have not, but I at least want to bring a conclusion to 2020 before also just a reminder that I'm kind of moving all the movie stuff over to my creature feature channel. So if you want to check out more creature stuff and more movie review stuff, it's most likely going to be over there. But for right now, let's go over the best films of 2020 that I saw. I should note there are some movies I didn't see, and I will be including some bad films and disappointing film along with a special thing at the end. I bring that up because there are some atrocious movies that came out this year, such as, let's say, Songbird or Artemis Fowl that I just didn't want to watch because I didn't want to have the willpower to see how could someone mess up this bad, and I wasn't stuck in a theater. If I'm in a theater, it's better. If I'm on streaming and I'm feeling bad, I'm not gonna watch it, most likely, unless I'm actively hate watching something, which I did do this year for a couple things. Now, I should also mention I'm not going to watch a movie that has a huge paywall, especially if I know that movie was funded by a big industry while next door there's a genocide going on. So yeah, not watching that. I'm also not watching pure propaganda that's also in the vein of a terrible, terrible documentary. So yeah, not watching that either. But all in all, I tried to watch a bunch of movies from all different types of genres and different aspects of film. So this list isn't going to be a pure action list. I should also take note of that. It's going to have different movies from that hit different criteria. So hey, maybe there's something on the list you'll like. Who knows? But number 10 on my list, it's Words on the Bathroom Wall, which again, terrible name, but deals with a Fault of Our Stars type drama where instead of the kid dying, it's the kid involved in mental illness. And again, I thought this was just gonna be bad, but honestly the performances in this movie are shockingly good, minus a few tropey things. I actually felt like the lead did a really good job of showing the unfortunate aspect of mental illness, and while sometimes it can be funny, sometimes it can be absolutely depressing in many different aspects of you falling down to this hole and you can't get back up. But here's the problem: you know you're slowly falling into the hole and you want to stop it, but you're also kind of letting yourself fall in. It's this weird mix of like this slow and impeding tragedy with also comedy. Again, like it. And I also liked all the little aspects they throw into it. Like I said, there are plenty of tropes in this movie, but the main cast provides a really solid performance, and I really enjoyed where it ended up. And again, there are some really overly dramatic sequences, especially toward the end, but I let it go just because at least it paid off in the movie. And also, all the leads and all the actresses in the movie did a really good job at portraying the mental illness and its impact, such as the stepfather character, the mother character to the son did a really good job. The love interest did a really good job. So was honestly shocked by this movie, which is why it's on my number 10 list. Otherwise, it would have been Sonic the Hedgehog, because goddamn, that movie was good. Jim Carrey just nailed it. I'm gonna be honest. I know people are constantly bringing up that joke, but it was not bad. And I know it's shocking. It's shocking that 2020 was so messed up that a Sonic movie was actually good. But number 9 on my spot is Borat 2, which again, I didn't care for the first one that much. I felt some of the gags were funny, but other parts I'm just like, it's just like overly cringy. This one I really enjoyed, but once again, the gags of it, some of them I just didn't find that funny. But some of them were actually pretty funny. The big thing I actually was surprising to me was how this film was created and the story. And I know for Borat, that's a weird thing to say, but I was actually really invested in the Borat and his daughter. And I can't really say going into that I was actually thinking about that at all. But yeah, while the gags could either be laugh out loud or just kind of boring, the story, especially with him, the process of filming this movie with him in character, being stuck in a cabin with these people for 3 days and being in character for that entire time is fascinating, especially because again, they were filming this movie before the pandemic and it kind of led into the pandemic, and then they just centered the movie around the pandemic. And it's such, the people behind this movie are way smart. Sacha Baron Cohen, I give full credit, because at the very least he goes all out and he did a good job of wrapping up the film. Again, there's all sorts of little stuff that happened in this movie that just really nailed it for me. And again, it is more political, and some of the things I'm like, okay, but some of them were, again, pretty funny. So I'll give it on that point. But overall, I really, really enjoyed Borat II for many different reasons. Again, I did not expect. Another movie I didn't expect to like so much was The Old Guard. And while Extraction on Netflix is probably a better action movie, this movie I felt had better characters, liked the soundtrack, overall had a good, again, central, like, I guess, like relation with the main character, the new up-and-coming guard member, or I guess, oh god, was it mortal character into their list. And again, everyone else in the cast is also great. The villain is more but again, the whole dynamic is them killing people, and if they do it well, that's fine. And by god, they do it well. So overall, with the characters being good, the action being great, the pacing also being on point. That's another problem with Extraction. While it did have good action, I felt the pacing and story was just not great. Could have been a lot better, but at least this nailed it, and I really want to see where this goes on, because again, I liked everyone in it, and I cared for them in an action movie where they're just destroying everyone in their way. So I'll tip my hat off to that. Again, really good job. Now, the next movie on my list, completely different, no killing involved. Happiest Season. Yeah, so this movie was essentially a Hallmark movie where you have a couple coming in to stay at a parent's house, and the parents don't know they're actually a couple, but it has some twists and turns in it. I mean, like, first off, the main couple are gay. So you have this aspect where I'm like, all right, this is already something Hallmark would not avoid, but you don't see much of. And it's one of those movies where, kind of like Tremors, and I know it's weird to compare Tremors with Happiest Season, but it's so craftily refined that every aspect nails it. The dramatic beats, they nail it. The comedic beats, they nail it. The pacing is great because they don't have any wasted time. It's essentially the best Hallmark movie you can get. It just so happens to be slightly different than most Hallmark movies. But look, if you can make a love story that is actually heartfelt and nails every aspect to it, even if it is, you know, a lot of the same, again, that's why I also bring up Tremors, because a lot of those aspects are similar to many other monster movies, but it's so well done, you gotta give it credit. Because again, it is like a lot of those other movies, but it's so well done and so well directed that I'm like, all right, I want to see where the director goes next with this, because again, if they can take essentially a Hallmark movie plot, turn it into a fantastic film that you're enthralled throughout the entire thing and had a good time, and it was essentially equivalent of something that, you know, you take for granted, I want to see where they go next. And speaking of which, at my next spot is Love and Monsters. Now, I was going to put Underwater here, and I was debating, but I moved Underwater out of this list and put Love and Monsters because I think structurally Love and Monsters is better, but I liked Underwater a lot more. And I think this might be the movie aspect where I saw it in theaters, so I had a better retention of Underwater, but it was a way better alien film than any alien film in years. Sorry, Alien Covenant, Prometheus. If you want to be grand and mighty and talk about God, how about you do so in a more interesting manner than just ham-fist it into an alien property? I'm sorry, it's just, there's so many different aspects of those movies that are just bad. So that's why I'm like, I give credit to Underwater, but I also credit the characters are not as, well, in-depth as Love and Monsters. Again, Love and Monsters has a good love story in it that shows the process of time and what that does, even in an apocalypse. Great secondary characters, a great lead. Again, the lead from the Maze Runner series, which I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but honestly, I felt concluded better than the Hunger Games. By God, what happened in that last movie? Point is, sticking to this one, structurally it's sound. There's not a wasted minute in it. All the action sequences are pretty good, and overall, it has a good amount of character to not just the humans, but also the monsters. Every monster is unique, and it's also threatening. It's not like, oh, well, we gotta make it comedic, so let's make the monster, you know, more comedic. No, they're gonna kill people, and again, it's a hard mix of having something threatening but funny, and they do a really, really good job in this movie, which, again, didn't expect. Because it does have a grim tone, but it also has some really heartfelt moments and some really good laughs. So, Love and Monsters snuck up onto my list, and I'm glad it did, because I got it at the very tail end of this year, and I was super surprised by how well it turned out. But another movie that came out that I should probably mention I was disappointed about. Here, I'll bring up my disappointment right now, since we're halfway through the best list. My Hero. I think it was Two Heroes or something along those lines. It was the second My Hero movie. Heroes Rising, maybe. Point is, yeah, it was Heroes Rising. The problem with this movie is the animation's great, mostly. There's some aspects I'm like, But mostly, it's fantastic, especially the ending. The soundtrack is okay. The problem is they reuse a lot of the score from the TV show. And it's funny because the TV show actually aired a song that was supposed to be for this movie, but the TV show did it better than the movie. It's one of those weird things where it's like, I know you hear it first and you kind of do it, but you kind of look at the choreography going on in the show and the animation and the pacing, and then you do it with the movie and how both were done. It's like, wow, TV show did it better with the minuscule of the budget that movie had. But yeah, also, here's the problem. The movie's villain, which the main hero is supposed to bounce off of, are all generic or bad. Like, the main villain himself is like literally a ripoff of One for All and was it Overload? But yeah, so I just couldn't care. I just didn't care about the main villain. And when you're doing all this special stuff to push through, I just really don't care. And when I'm laughing in a really, like, you know, heartfelt moment, it's not good. Now, I didn't put this on my bad list because maybe if it was a 10 list, I would have, but I only listed 5 bad movies. I may have, but honestly, it's just one of those films where I'm just like, I'm just not gonna remember. And I honestly like the first movie better just because it was more dramatic, or at least I felt it was more dramatic, rather than this movie. And it's weird. It's a weird movie because I know a lot. It's my most hated review I posted this year by a mile. But the thing is about it, I still stick by it. I still think it's not great. I still think that's going to be forgotten pretty quickly. I just think that people remember it just because of the fact it has better animation than the first My Hero movie, and also the fact that there's a special event that happens, which they immediately were like, look at this amazing event, and we're just gonna pull the rug under from it and make sure it doesn't have any impact whatsoever. Wonderful. At least the other movie had an impact with the story. Moving on with my the best of list. Now we'll get to the worst. Freaky came out this year, and oh my god, I was not expecting this movie. Hell, it was the funniest movie I saw this year, bar none. Vince Vaughn is great as both a killer and also a teenage girl, and I know that people are saying they copied that from Jumanji, but here's the thing. You can play that differently because Jumanji is a kid character and an avatar for a video game. Here, it's a kid character and an avatar of a serial killer. So a little bit different, a little bit different. And again, I think Vince Vaughn's great. He nails every aspect of it, and I think all the teenage characters are also pretty good. There's some definitely tropey characters in there, but usually they're dead pretty quick. So again, gotta give it up to this movie. Was not expecting it to be this much fun, but oh my god, I had a blast. I laughed so hard in this movie. And again, it is one of the few films I saw in theaters during the pandemic, and there was like barely anyone in there, but everyone in there was laughing so loud and having a good time. So I gotta give it up for it. Now, next up on my list is Soul, and this one I unfortunately didn't have time to watch Wolfwalkers, and that was the other movie that people keep recommending to me, especially because I'm an animation guy and I love animation so much, but I never got around to it. And while Onward I think is a good movie and it gets great, Soul is great the entire time. The animation's fantastic, all the leads are fantastic with their performances. Again, the pacing's really good. They do a fantastic job with the score and incorporating that into the movie. And again, the ending of Soul is just so good because you can take it in so many different ways. Some people think something should have happened. I disagree. I think it's fine with how it wrapped up, and actually giving a lot of, well, balls for it to end in that way and not give a conclusion that many people wanted. Because again, most people would want it to extend for 5 minutes. I'm fine with leaving it where it is because that's the whole point of the movie. So really, really got to give it out. I thought Pixar was kind of getting back up to like where it was, but now that I'm seeing the last couple years with Onward, with Soul, with Coco, Pixar is back up to a really good quality that I would say it's something to where it's like with Up or with Ratatouille and WALL-E, kind of like that leading up to Toy Story 3, where it's like that era of Pixar was just knockout after knockout. Well, I think Onward you could probably argue is more like a Ratatouille where it gets good by the ending. That's fine. Pixar is still back up on top, and everything I hear about Wolfwalkers is also great, so hey, check that out. But yeah, it's on my list to watch eventually. Next up is a movie that it was on HBO. I think this is more of a limited movie, but still, it's fantastic, and it has Hugh Jackman in it. It's Bad Education. It's a true story about corruption in a public school system. oh my god, Hugh Jackman just knocks it out of the park, playing such a good twisted villain that you sympathize with him majority of the time, and every time he gives an argument, you're like, yeah, I can see why people believe him, or I can see why people would fall for it, or anything. And again, there's all sorts of other characters in this movie. It's not just Hugh Jackman, but he just knocks it out of the park. So please, please, please check out Hugh Jackman. It's easily one of my favorite performances of the year, and I'm not even joking. But it's also so good because of the fact it shows that Hugh Jackman can be so mesmerizing as a lead. He doesn't just need claws. He can be a fantastic performer like he was in Prisoners. That again, please watch that movie, because also everyone, the kid actors in the movie are also fantastic and go toe to toe with Hugh Jackman. And the story's so good, the directing's fantastic. Please, please, please don't miss Bad Education. It's so good. Next up on my list is probably my favorite movie I watched in theaters. Well, yeah, now I'm gonna be honest. It was my favorite, my visual experience, at least me watching it and just getting laughs and chills and thrills. The Invisible Man. If Elizabeth Moss doesn't get a nomination for Best Actress, I will be shocked. I know the Golden Globes just released, but please, Academy, one time, please give it to a horror. Because again, every single year there's a great horror performance, from Us to Hereditary and other things like that that don't get like a big shout out. Please give it to Elizabeth Moss, because she's so good in this movie as playing someone who's been abused, who's been tormented by her, oh god, I don't know if she's married in the movie. I think they're married, not entirely sure. Point is, her yeah, the person she's in the relationship with is treating her so terribly and controlling her so much that it's incredible that is more interesting than the Invisible Man aspect. But the Invisible Man aspect literally, and again, the reason why I put that is, you essentially have the Invisible Man, aka a character that can go invisible. That's fine, but the way the Invisible Man is used as controlling, as tormenting this person, as making others think they're losing their mind, an aspect to gain further control over a person's life, so relevant right now and so interesting. And the ending, my god, because people complained that the trailer revealed too much. It didn't, and if I don't recommend the trailer because it does reveal a lot, but my god, the ending is so fantastic that I cannot recommend Invisible Man enough. It has good, I wouldn't say scares, but it has good amount of tension building and a good amount of like, oh my god moments to it, that if you have not seen Invisible Man, please watch it. It has no connection to The Mummy, which I know a lot of people are like, is it part of the Dark Universe? No, it's kind of like The Shape of Water, where you have filmmakers being like, hey, can we take insert property from Universal's monster catalog and make a good movie out of it? And Universal reluctantly agrees, or they say no, so they make it themselves and make it a Best Picture winner. So yeah, please, please, please don't miss out on The Invisible Man. Now, my favorite film of 2020 was 1917. It released in the United States in 2020, at least majorly. I know some people could watch it in 2019, but most people couldn't. So anytime that a picture, and again, I know this has been multiple years that I've done this, where it's released majorly in the United States at a certain time, that's when I count it. So like, for example, One Night in Miami, I would count as 2021 because that was publicly available. Sure, critic might have seen it in 2019 or 2020, again, for certain films. But it's like, okay, if the general audience doesn't have access to see it, then it's not released yet. I kind of see it as like an early like review copy for a reviewer for like a movie, but it, you know, doesn't come out yet. Okay, sure, you reviewed it, but sometimes it may not even release. I mean, there have been games like that or movies and such. So anyway, yeah, if you've not seen 1917, just watch it. It's great. Now, Invisible Man is probably like the best film I enjoyed watching. 1917 was the best film for like a cinematic experience, for just how in depth you were, like engrossed into the film. That said, I can take that the characters are a little more bare bones in the movie, but the cinematography, the action, the pacing, everything is so good that, yeah, I like The Invisible Man more as like a fun movie, but anytime I'm gonna be like, hey, do you want to see an experience, 1917 is gonna be a movie where I can just pop on and show people like, this is what a movie can be to engross you. So anyway, that's my best list of 2020. Now let's get to the worst list real quick. Wonder Woman 84 is my number 5, and it's not, it's a bad movie, but it's an entertaining bad movie. The main leads are great, but everything else, the pacing, the action, everything else just falls flat in the movie. Scoob is the name of a movie that released, and I was actually looking forward to it, because I'm like, oh, it's Scooby-Doo. Hopefully they make it good, especially with all the ties to Hanna-Barbera. And that kind of weighed down the film. They kind of throw in some emotional moments, and it doesn't really work. There's no mystery to it. The best thing about it is the villain. Oh my God, Dastardly is so good. Dick Dastardly saves the movie from falling even further down into my worst movie list. But yeah, other than that, I couldn't stand anything else about the movie. Now, Call of the Wild is something where I can also say that Harrison Ford tried to save the movie, but the CGI dog kind of ruined it. When you have something that's so blatantly CGI and everything else is live action, I'm sorry, I just can't stand your movie. It just looks so painfully bad. It felt like, okay, this dog would work better in Scoob than actually like with Harrison Ford. So like, it's one of those things where I just don't get with the filmmakers in the aspect of the movie or what they were doing. So yeah, that is number 3. Number 2 is Tremors 7. This is the movie that I hate watched. I'm sorry, it's just bad. Michael Gross is great in it, but everything else about the movie, the pacing, the structure, everything else, just logic in the movie is just thrown out the window. But yeah, that's on Netflix. So hey, if you, I guess, don't like yourself and you want to see a bad monster movie compared to the original Tremors, watch Tremors 7. You really appreciate how good some of the Tremors sequels like 2 and 4 are, even 3. And so yeah, please watch that. And of course, the worst film of 2020 is The Grudge. This movie I watched, and literally when it ended, people groaned and said, that's it. Like literally, it was like, oh, okay, we're done? All right, we're leaving. People were just infuriated by the movie. Again, also they were laughing. This movie's an unintentional comedy, even though it's a horror movie. It's just so bad at being a horror movie that it turns into a comedy, because we're like, there's nothing scary in the movie. It's just bad. There's some gore and some decent cinematography, but it's like, okay, cool. Doesn't save the movie at all. The plot's confusing and dumb. The story's dumb. There's no rules in it for a horror movie, so yeah, it's bad. Go watch The Invisible Man. It's way better than this. But yeah, The Grudge, absolutely terrible. And I don't know what they were trying to do, reboot, remake. It fails in all ways. But hey, that's my list for 2020. But one last thing I want to bring up. If you're wondering what my favorite TV shows were, and because I usually put up a list for that, I didn't really watch that much TV. Unfortunately, I was busy with many different things. Again, you have The Mandalorian, which is great, and I can always say ReZero Part 1 of Season 2 is great, and a few other different things. But honestly, the show that, and this is not a joke, that was my personal favorite, that especially when I was sick in bed for weeks and I couldn't get out, literally kept my spirits high, and this is going to sound incredibly dumb, She-Ra. She-Ra on Netflix is going to be the show I remember for 2020, because it put me in a good mood while I was absolutely in a terrible state. So yeah, it has great characters, great story. Some seasons are better than others, but season 5, when I finally got to that, because it released last year, was so good. The main villain is great. Again, all the characters and how they intertwine with each other are great. I wish they fleshed out the world better, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is the characters, and they do a really good job of showing many different characters with many different disabilities or many different attributes that make them fall apart, but in all, they kind of rise up above that. And I just really enjoyed it. It just had a good amount of like thrills, comedy, even some light horror to it. So yeah, liked a lot of aspects to it. So I know, not the TV show you probably thought I was going to recommend, but hey, I try to watch 13 Reasons Why, and that I think kind of showed me like I don't need to watch stuff that's just going to put me in an even worse mood, especially if I'm not feeling great. So hey, yeah, blame 13 Reasons Why. It's bad. I mean, but you already knew that probably. Hey, but that's my list. Let me know what your favorite movies are down below. This has been Greyshot17, and I'll see all of you next time.
Hello everyone, this is Greyshot. If you want to check out previous content, video links will be above, including my Patreon link, which again, many people support, including Aphyria, Milam, Joey G240, Samuel McKinney, Seth Kuipers, Anton, Bishara, PyroShark, Ace, Fall of Man, Jakub, Ocwieja, to round it out. Thank you guys so much for your incredible support. If you want to be a patron, you can join. Otherwise, thank you to my current patrons. You guys rock and help me do what I do best. Anyway, this has been Greyshot17, and I'll see all of you next time.